I guess this is episode 2. What's going on, man? For the listener, if there is a listener, we so this is episode 2 of our podcast, The Wrong Fit, and I haven't even sat down to edit the first one. So the first one we recorded, I believe it was August 12th. Today is August 23rd. I'm willing to bet that if these are going to get released, this is probably, I would hate to be wrong about this, but it's probably early September if you are not me or Eli listening to this right now. But today is August 23rd, 2
Our
o'clock p.m.
conversations are timeless.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So this is episode 2. Like I said, I have, this is sort of like maybe the end state or the start of the end state of our like pre-release timeline, where before, in the planning stages of this pod, we were talking about how many episodes we would do, and we were kind of like, maybe 2 or 3, but I'm willing to bet that by the time I get both of them edited and released or uploaded to somewhere where we can look at it, we'll have made it. We have enough information to make a decision about how to move forward from here, right?
Yeah. I think that this is a good sample size, and then we can extrapolate from there. But yeah, I mean, I think episode 1 went swimmingly, so I think we can keep on going.
Yeah, I think so too. I think I already, even though it's literally like the first 2 minutes, I already feel just so much more natural and calm doing this kind of format with you, and I think we have a good set of topics on our shoulders, and moving ahead with things like schedule and routine and things like that, that can come later. But I think, I think when we really see them both kind of side by side and make a decision, I think we will make the decision to release them and move forward with just a casual schedule routine. I know you're starting school pretty soon. Again, today's the 23rd, and Eli starts school on the 26th. Is that correct?
26, yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, that's got a lot of baggage to it.
How you feeling, man? So I wanted to make sure I wanted to touch on this last week or 2 weeks ago on episode 1, but we didn't get around to it. So I really wanted to touch on back to school at UT in the age of COVID-19, and talk a little bit about so if you guys didn't know, or if you didn't remember or whatever, I'm graduated and I'm doing a little bit of remote work, a little bit of remote employment. I would consider myself broadly unemployed, even though I have like at any given moment I have like 2 jobs, quote unquote, but it's hardly enough to like live on or anything. So I consider myself broadly unemployed, but I'm privileged in that everything I can do I've done remotely. And like I said, I've graduated from school. I don't have any reason to be anywhere that I don't want to be. So I've been home since March. But I know, Eli, you have 1 year of school left.
Yes. Yeah, and it's been, likewise, like this entire summer, I've been working remote. I've been doing classes remotely. It has been super, remote this entire time. And just thinking about in 3 days, I'm going to be, I don't think I'm going to have any meetings the first week, thankfully. And I'm going to try and get out of any meetings as possible. UT supposedly has tried their best to put everything that they can online, but I'm definitely skeptical of the measures that have been taken, and I want to be as cautious as possible, given what I know about what we're doing here. I've already seen so many schools, Notre Dame, Rochester, a couple of others, I think UNC, have already closed down and they've barely been back to school. And I definitely anticipate that happening at UT, and I don't want to be part of the cluster of people that, hey, we're shutting it down because so many people got COVID. I don't plan to be part of that. But
Yeah.
We're closing. We were talking about this a lot last year. Is like you graduating, like your last year, you've got a lot of classes like you have to take. And unfortunately, I've gotten to that point where there's some classes on my schedule. I'm taking 12 hours this semester at UT, and 3 hours at community college to add on to my degree plan. But there's some classes that I can't get out of. So right now I'm looking at 6 of my 12 hours at UT are going to be in person.
Holy cow.
Yeah, yeah. So, and they're hybrid. So they're not like, there's just half of my classes are going to have an in-person component, basically. It's not going to be like every single day I'm there. I think for one class is once a week, which is a lot. But the other class is 6 times the entire semester, and we're going to be meeting outside, which I feel a little bit more comfortable doing. Um, but again, it just doesn't seem, it seems forced, and it doesn't seem like something that needs to happen. It feels like something that they're making happen because of a lot of different factors like money and politics and, a lot of it going on. But I definitely don't feel safe going in 3 days back to school. And like we'd said, we don't know when exactly this is going to get released, probably around September. But, I'm willing to bet that by that time, we're going to have closed up shop and we're going to be back in our homes on our laptops doing our work.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's any current like success story for schools that have returned or anything. You mentioned a couple of universities that have tried and they just totally failed. And it's a combination of a student body that doesn't feel the burden of responsibility on this front. But more
Exactly.
importantly, it is also the fault of administrations that allow the situation to occur in the first place as a result of money and internal politics and so on and so forth.
And,
And
and
I
they have to know, like they have to know, like you talked about those two components, but the administration has to know that students aren't going to be doing what they say because it is the world we live in.
yeah, it's really frustrating, especially because you would think that people our age would know better by now. It is
Exactly.
it is frankly astounding to me that me and my family, we had taken this extremely seriously. The only time that I have been in like a store since March was like last month, stopping at a Home Depot to use a Lowe's to use the restroom, and that felt just surreal because I had not been in a store inside a store for months and months and months. Mainly because I've got my father and my sister that can go to the stores if they have to in person. We've been doing curbside, we've been doing remote pickup, we've been doing stuff like that. So to just try to decrease our vectors of contact. And even then, there are still risks and things involved. I couldn't even imagine right now because we hear about this from our friends. From we see pictures of this happening all over the country. You know, hundreds and dozens of kids gathering en masse for stupid just sorority fraternity garbage parties in West Campus. And for the uninitiated, West Campus is the region west of campus
Yeah.
at UT Austin, where I would posit that probably a decent majority, if not a vast majority of students live
Yeah.
when they're not living on campus. So it is, and I will put this politely, it is a wretched hive of scum and villainy. And I had I never lived on campus. I didn't have that pleasure of living in Jester West or displeasure. I've always lived off campus, but for about half, for a little bit more than half of my time at UT, I lived in what could be called South Campus. So I lived on, Austinites will know this, but I lived on 17th and Guadalupe. So that's sort of South Campus, although it's very close to campus and very close to West Campus. But eventually, I had to move out of that area for maybe a reason we can get into later, because that's a fun story. And I had to sort of live in West Campus till really till I graduated. And I mean, the things you see there, the culture that it propagates, the toxicity and everything, it is, I mean, it is just horrible. It's a horrible place just because it's just a bunch of college students living in the same area, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it was toxic even before the
before COVID, and now
coronavirus.
it's literally just pandemic toxic too. And
Yeah.
and I remember I had to move out of where I was living before. I moved out in May, and I remember that was a big thing because that was gonna be, because until then we had been quarantining, right, staying at home, me and my sister, because me and my sister, she helped me move out of Austin. So I'm from Laredo, and I was living in Laredo since quarantine started. and we traveling to Austin and being immersed in like a West Campus apartment and moving stuff out, like that was going to be the most high risk thing we had done at the time. We hadn't gone to stores, we hadn't done anything like that. We had been at home, so being in Austin and West Campus was going to be like the highest risk situation, and especially given that West Campus has been a COVID hotbed, and Austin has not really done that good of a job. Oh, maybe they have now. I haven't checked the cases or anything, but
and UT specifically was the top of the New York Times' list of COVID campuses.
Yeah. So it wasn't a good situation to be. Luckily, and thank God, we did not get coronavirus after having been in West Campus. But even being there were kids without masks. There were kids gathering in groups, walking along the streets and everything, and it just did not feel like enough. It felt like a not insignificant amount of people were just not taking this seriously, and that was before summer. That was before the spikes that we saw in June and July. That was before everything, and that was before supposedly like the heat was supposed to tamper this thing down, and it hasn't done that. And now it's starting to cool down all over the country, including here in Texas, even though it doesn't feel like it's cooling down. It is cooling down if you look at the average temperatures. So now what, right?
Yeah,
and
what's next?
I don't think the answer is to adopt this weird, kooky hybrid model that still has tens of thousands of students flocking to Austin for a couple of classes, and then we are going to see just a horrible spike in cases. I would be obviously, I would love to be wrong, but I would be shocked if I was wrong that by the second or third week of school, they, UT did not have to emergency, shut down the campus again.
Exactly. Like that definitely mirrors my feelings exactly. And going into what you'd said about, like your situation of that you had been so careful, but you had to move out your apartment. It's I kind of feel the same way, but it's like we've been really careful. And now we've been put into this situation as just a student body, as people who've been taking this seriously, that we are going to be put into a situation which is not safe, and it's going to be. It doesn't. I don't see this ending well for any party involved. All the fail safes that UT has that says in writing, we are going to close down our campus if X happens. I don't want to get too grim, but a lot of those scenarios are very grim. And it just seems very irresponsible that we've put these fail safes in place, and, we're just kind of we're waiting for this to happen.
It's not responsible. And I don't, it's a tough conversation to have, especially because you got folks that, really, that until they got away from toxic home environments or whatever, they couldn't be themselves. They were in danger at home or what have you, and they come to UT and they're no longer in danger. And it is such an impossibly difficult conversation to have. But, at the end of the day, we are staring down the face of a pandemic, and that has killed, I think, I don't know what the number is now, but I think it's over 200,000 Americans by now. Forgive me if I misquoted that. I know it's for sure over 100,000, and We've got 5 million cases here in the States, and it's not really getting better almost anywhere, other than maybe New York. I don't know what they're doing, right? So unfortunately, I just don't see any safe alternative. There are high schools that closed down immediately after opening because of COVID outbreaks. It happens at universities. It has happened everywhere without fail. Because again, there's a profit motive, there's a political motive, and there are enough people that don't feel the burden of responsibility here.
Yeah,
it's really, it's certainly discouraging. It makes me feel really sad. I don't want to say, I lost my faith in humanity or anything, because that's just like a broken record at this point. But it's one of those things where you begin to see the world differently, and the people that inhabit it differently. It's just what this has done to my mental headspace is truly shocking. The only thing that rivals it is Trump winning in 2016.
Yeah.
That's when I started to see the world very differently, and we can unpack that later in another segment. But yeah, it's I feel for you, Eli. I mean, you know I don't know what to say other than you know you got to stay safe out there, man. You gotta you have to I don't want to beat a dead horse. What the
Yeah.
stakes are.
Yeah. It's again, it's not just about me. It's about our community at UT of like, you know, not we don't want anyone to get it, and like it is bad news if you do. So yeah, definitely like yeah, anyone listening to this, like let's hope that everyone's managed to stay safe, and those horrible fail safes that we've talked about don't get triggered. But yeah, definitely grim topics. You mentioned it a little bit earlier to spin the topic into maybe a more positive direction.
Hmm.
What's your story of moving out from your apartment south of campus?
Oh yeah. So I did not get a housing contract when I got accepted to UT. It was a little bit of miscommunication on my part. I did not know. I think I applied to housing too late, and they didn't have enough. They didn't have space for me, and I didn't find that out until like June, or I don't know when it was.
Yeah,
So again, for the timetable, I graduated high school in 2016, and I started college in fall of 2016. So it's June of the same year, and I did not have anywhere to live. And I'm from Laredo, born and raised in Laredo, and Austin is about 3.5 hours away from Laredo.
quite a commute.
And well, yeah. It's not really a long drive in terms of like a road trip or anything, but it would, if I had to commute from Laredo to Austin, that would be frankly ridiculous.
Exactly.
But then again, people commute from Houston to Austin, and I find that ridiculous too. But
Yeah.
you do what you can, right? Um, so what had happened was, so that happened. I didn't get housing, and we got this mad dash to the finish line to try to look for a space. So during orientation, my dad and I, we toured some apartments, some really nasty looking West Campus apartments, and they didn't really, the budget wasn't right, the vibes were off. My dad didn't really like any of them, and to be honest, I didn't like any of them either. And on Craigslist, my dad was scanning through apartment listings and stuff because Craigslist is actually a really good place to look for that. And at the very when we finish up here with this conversation, I want to lay down some tips for people looking for housing in West Campus, because I have a lot of things that I can say on this.
It was really
Um,
helpful. Yeah.
yeah. So we were on Craigslist looking for apartments, and we see this kind of like cozy little place that is on 17th Street, so very close to campus, and the rate's really competitive. And you applied for it, and I applied for it. I filled out the application because it was only one space, and I'm sure there were more than a few people looking at it, so you had to kind of like apply for it. They did like a phone interview, just to see if like because it was such a small, the building only had like 11 rooms in it,
Oh
so they
wow.
kind of had to vet like if you were the kind of person that they wouldn't mind having around.
Hmm.
Um, and I know as I'm saying this, it sounds really weird, but I assure you, it really wasn't weird at all. It was just like it's a quiet building, so they needed to
Yeah.
know, like, if the person would commit to a few rules that everyone would follow for the benefit of everybody,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
not like West Campus where, when you move in, you have no idea if the next door neighbor, smokes a ton of weed and has parties every day, and now you hate living there.
Yeah.
Here, it's like, you don't smoke indoors because everyone would smell it and it would be extremely obvious who it is.
Yeah.
And you don't party because no, it's ridiculous. And you're quiet after certain hours because you need to be considerate to everybody. All in all, it was a really fantastic experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they let me in. I got the lease and everything. And first year, I had to room with somebody, and that was sort of a tough thing because my roommate snored like a chainsaw. And sophomore year, a solo room opened up, and because I had already been living there, I got priority access to it, and I signed a lease, and I lived solo from sophomore year till the middle of junior year. So now fast forward to November of 2018, and I get an email from the management at the apartment saying that Travis County was eminent domaining the whole lot. So this building,
What?
yeah. So this building sat on a lot that had like 3 parking lots surrounding it and an
Mhm.
abandoned lot in like the upper left quadrant of the entire lot. So this lot was huge.
Yeah.
It's an entire city block, but the only thing that's usable are these 3 parking lots that you pay to park in and this little building that houses 11 people and a small business downstairs. So
Wow.
I suppose Travis County saw that it wasn't really like a good use of the space or anything, which I would agree with if I was not the one living there. Um,
Seems like a pretty good. From that perspective, seems like a pretty good use
it's a
of the
pretty good
space.
use of space for me. And there was no denying it. It was all done. It was 95% certain, which means it's 100% certain. And yeah, I had to move out. So the um, the deadline was like February 29th. It was a leap, no, 28th, because it was not a leap year that year in 2019. So I moved out like mid February 2019, and that started like this apartment hopping process that I really, really hated, but that was only because of my resistance of signing like an expensive, ridiculous West Campus lease because I had heard like the horror stories about it. So I was better off just like doing like shadow subleasing. Um, you know, illegal is the right term for it, but they can't get me now.
Yeah.
So
Statute of
yeah,
limitations, baby.
yeah. Well, I don't know if I'm covered on that, but we're just gonna hope that nobody hears this that needs to hear it. But yeah, so my advice to people is obviously, you know, my method of having done things because I lived in a different apartment for pretty much like 3 apartments in 3 semesters, which is not ideal because moving that often is crazy.
Stressful, man.
It's a really bad idea. So, but my advice still is this: is that if you can get like a real legit like sublease with a contract and everything, but if you can do like an agreement, like a handshake agreement with the person, because this can happen pretty often with the person, because if you join like the sublet groups on Facebook, if you're looking around on Craigslist, and if you wait till the last minute, this is actually one of those things where you really do want to wait till the end because people get more desperate near the end. So you got people that have like a year left on their lease or a semester or whatever, and they got to go study abroad somewhere, and they need to like kill that apartment, or they can't cancel the lease. They need to have somebody living there to help make up the rent. And if they don't have anybody yet, they will give you favorable rates on the rent. That's just way more likely to happen. And you might be worried. You might say, well, if I wait till the end, what if there aren't any apartments that I like? There will be apartments that you like. I was so shocked at like the quality of apartments that were still being offered, like the day before school started, the week that school started, the week after school started. People are offering stuff all the time. So don't
Yeah.
worry about that. Again, this was pre-COVID, so I don't know what the situation is like now, but so I was always looking around for really competitive rates, and the rates were extremely competitive all the time. So that's my advice to you. But the only thing that I would ask that you do differently is, not move so often and try to make it as official as possible. But
Yeah.
you can always avoid, getting suckered into like a really crappy West Campus lease by just getting, some handshake agreements with people that you trust. Obviously it takes trust, right? I was blessed that I did not have any problems. Your situation, your mileage may vary, but that is my advice to people. So did you see this? Did you see that The Weeknd and Calvin Harris have a track coming out next week?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so we got a new track coming. It's called Over Now.
Over now.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, Calvin Harris and The Weeknd, like that's like a dream collab.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what your history is. I know you like The Weeknd. I don't know what your
Yeah.
history is with Calvin Harris, but Calvin Harris is my boy.
Really? I know like
Yeah.
3 of his songs, but I like them, but yeah, I didn't realize that you were like that big of a fan of Calvin Harris. That's cool though.
He's an incredible producer.
Mhm.
That is evident from his like EDM output from like many years
Yeah.
ago, and his EDM stuff is really good. Don't get me wrong, it is really good.
That's what I know him from. Yeah.
But he kind of evolved from like EDM. Now he's doing kind of like dance hall and a couple sorry, not dance hall. That's the wrong term to use. But
Mhm.
he is kind of doing this like '90s style, like throwback, like Eurobeat kind of stuff sometimes.
Okay.
But a couple years ago, he had Funk Wave Bounces Volume One, which had hits like Slide. You've probably heard Slide with Frank Ocean and Migos.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
had Rollin', Future, and Khalid. He had Heat Stroke with Pharrell, Young Thug, Ariana Grande. He had
I remember that one. Yeah.
Feels, Big Sean, Katy Perry, Pharrell again. Like, dude, like incredible album, incredible mixing, incredible production, incredible beats, incredible instrumentation, and like the star power of the collaborations that he got. He's just like a way better like DJ Khaled.
Yeah.
Like Calvin Harris is who DJ Khaled wishes he was. Like not only he
Yeah.
gets these artists from like all over the spectrum, but like they actually work really well together.
Yeah, and that's a talent in and of itself. I think is like you've got so many personalities that you're trying to juggle on this one album and this one track for some of those. Like that's a whole talent in and of itself that you're able to balance those out. But yeah, I mean that's some star power right there.
And Calvin Harris like the EDM wave from like many years ago, like not many artists survived that, but Calvin Harris did.
Yeah,
He adapted, he moved on, and he had hits last year. He has hits like every year. Like he just masterclass producer, like one of the best artists in the game. Like I'm not gonna lie, like one of the best pop artists in the game right now. And he's like not even like a bad singer. Like occasionally he'll sing his own stuff, but he hasn't done that in a while.
yeah.
But not a bad singer in and of itself. But so back to the main thing. He announced yesterday or a couple days ago
Hmm.
that that he is gonna release a track with the one and only Abel Tesfaye, The Weeknd. And I mean, this is just like this is the Weeknd's year. I mean, can we say that?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
after hours, he's got like remixes and songs with other people and collabs and like Spotify, TikTok experiences. Like he
yeah. I
is
remember
just
that TikTok thing. Yeah, I didn't get to watch it, but yeah,
he's
he's
just
popping.
huge. He's huge right now, you know. And like I don't really know much about what this track is gonna sound like. I know that there are snippets of snippets that kind of like imply that it's gonna be funky, it's gonna be well produced, it's gonna be vintage, it's gonna be cool. Like oh my god, like my hype is just off the charts right now. Um, by the time I edit this, the song will probably be out. But
Yeah, we'll see.
yeah, well, we'll see. Um, but I am just so beyond excited. Like I said, like Calvin Harris is one of my favorite producers. One of my favorite pop artists, and The Weeknd is like my favorite artist ever.
Yeah,
So it's just like the star power here is just incredible. Like this again, this is a dream collab for me.
yeah. I'll have to check out some Calvin Harris because I am not as familiar. I do remember him from a while back when he was doing the more EDM stuff. And he did sing his own stuff. Like I remember, and I remember thinking he was like he's pretty talented. But I definitely haven't checked him out in a while, but definitely will now in anticipation for this. All right. Well, I think that there's no better way to set the stage other than just looking at these. In my opinion, I mean, so that like we like to, both of us. I think we like to take risks sometimes. You try something out, a little edgy, a little different.
Hmm.
It's try to make something your own thing, and I. So you just look at these things, and you can tell that's definitely what they were going for. But and I want to get your take on it, what you think about this. But in my opinion, like man, this is a monstrosity. Like this is not. This is going to go in the negative fit pile, in my opinion.
So have you? I feel like have you mentioned what these or are we?
All right,
Yeah.
so it's hard to explain. You can really just it's just so Crocs and KFC recently had a collab, and this is as as many people I'm sure know, this is a pretty common thing that these types of brands to promote both Crocs and KFC they do these sneaker collaborations, and it's usually like I was about to say it's hit or miss, but it really is usually like a pretty positive thing. And it's something that, as a fan of either brand or both brands in certain cases, like as a fan, you can get really excited about.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I know that Marco and I, like I'm really excited. Adidas is doing a collab trainer with Lego, and I
Yeah.
think it's going to come out in a few months. And that's something that both brands, you and I, both have very like special attachments to. Um, and I'm really looking forward to that. You know, to that drop. But with these Crocs, like it feels to me what they're trying to do is trying to make something that is like a hype beast, instant classic, like edgy, like whatever. So what you got here, and you can pull it up and look at it as well and see if I'm describing it properly. But what you got is a pretty basic Croc. You know, I'm not a Croc guy, so maybe that's where my distaste for it starts. But you've got a pretty basic Croc like shape, whatever. Um, and what do you call those things that they put on the little like in the holes of
I
the
don't
Crocs?
know. They're like
Gibbets,
gibbets.
gibbets. That's right.
That's
So like structurally, you've just basically got a one shoe or like a Croc like normal build with a gibbet.
yeah.
But when you look at it a little bit more, the surface of the Croc is basically designed to mimic a KFC like bowl of fried chicken, right?
Right, right. Like a
So
bucket.
yeah, it's literally like a bucket of chicken. And the design, like the sole is red and white, like the
Right,
KFC bucket.
right.
The top of it, kind of symbolizing the inside of the bucket. Like the whole top of the shoe is stylized with KFC chicken. Like just basically just threw on a photo of KFC chicken. You got all that fried, crispy, whatever on it,
Yeah.
and the connector thing. Again, I'm not an expert on Crocs. I don't know exactly the mechanical parts, the right words for it, but the little thing that connects the back part of the Croc, the separate piece that you can either fold up or fold back depending on how you want to wear it. It's got a special little button there that says Kentucky Fried Chicken, Crocs, just to kind of symbolize that. Oh, and on the heels of both shoes, it's got a little, on one of them, it has a little silhouette of the kernel, or not a silhouette, like a little drawn thing, like they have on the regular boxes.
Yeah.
And on the other one, it has just the logo Kentucky Fried Chicken. And the gibbet, which I think is the most, like, I was kind of almost on board with the shoe because I was like, okay, like this is cool, casual, lifestyle, whatever thing.
Oh
But
man.
man, that gibbet.
I need to take you to task for that, but I'll
All
leave
right,
it. Keep going.
this is the last little thing about it is these gibbets. Like, man, they're basically designed to be like Kentucky Fried Chicken, like drumsticks, you know, on the top of your shoe. So you've got this like clunky looking, uh, like piece of it's like you just kicked a fried chicken in and just kind of stayed on your shoe, and it looks like realistic as hell. You know, on top of your shoe right there, like super realistic looking gibbet fried chicken piece, and yeah, it's just kind of sitting there on top of the shoe, doesn't really know what it's doing there, just kind of sitting there. And it looks like, it almost looks gross. Like it looks real, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't look fresh. Like it definitely doesn't look like a real, like, oh, that looks tasty. Like I want to take a bite out of your shoe.
Oh
Um,
God.
it looks just kind of like a stale piece of chicken you just kind of slapped on your shoe.
And like one of the promo pictures here has like a bunch of them, like a bunch of the gibbets, like on each shoe. So like your shoe just has like four different like drumsticks, just like
Yeah.
attached to it, like a
Ugh.
horrible experiment. It okay.
It is. I think experiment's the right word for it because it does feel like an experiment. I think each comes with two gibbets. I think, and you can add on more because that's what you do with Crocs, I guess. And it just looks. I mean, it looks really like it almost looks heavy. Like I don't know if you're getting the same thing from that image with the multiple chicken gibbets on the top. It just looks like heavy and clunky. And man, my favorite part is at the end where it's going through each pair of co-branded footwear comes with two gibbets. It says at the end, it says not for human consumption. which I just think is hilarious because that's exactly my like. It does not look tasty having a piece of
Yeah.
chicken on your feet. Ugh.
So I feel like some personal context is in order here.
Definitely.
Have you ever worn Crocs?
I have worn Crocs, but not since I uh, matured as a
So I
person.
was gonna say, so you grew up.
I grew up wearing Crocs. Yeah,
No, I was gonna say you grew up, so you stopped wearing Crocs because
exactly.
you're a functioning member of society now.
Yeah, closed-toe
Um,
shoes for the win, for sure.
yes, and one day we'll, or maybe that day will be today, depending on how much time we have. Um, we will talk about closed toe shoes and closed toe shoe superiority, but um, so I have never worn Crocs. I've never
Okay.
worn one, not even like as a joke, not even not like I've seen them in the store. I have never worn one,
Yeah.
and I have friends that do. And here's the thing, right? I am sworn up and down by the Croc advocates, the Crocvocates, if you will,
Croc for kids. Wow.
the
Okay.
Crocvocates. Yes, yes, yes. Um, I have been sworn by them. I have been what is the word? Well, they swear by the comfort of a Croc when you break them in, and apparently it's like super comfortable. And I believe that. You know, you ever have like a pair of slides that you buy from Foot Locker or whatever, and they're a little stiff the first time, but you break them in, and the slide conforms to your foot. You know,
Yeah.
there's something really comfortable about slides, right?
Definitely. I think
And
that's the closest like connector because it's not really a flip flop or a sandal. I think
so
slide is probably the
so
best.
that's the thing, right? So like slides at least have like a cool, decent like form factor. Although I would
Yeah.
not, a lot of people wear slides, as like shoes. I would not because again, I am not a open toe guy.
Close toe
But
shoe gang.
yeah, close to a shoe gang. But Crocs, like they don't even have that the form factor of a slide. Like they just look ridiculous. And the thing is, like, I am not on the, and this is now talking about closed versus open again, but I am not in the gang of comfort over style.
Okay.
I am firmly, for my life philosophy, I am firmly like I prefer style over function or form over function.
Mhm.
Yeah, form over function because the way I see it, they need to be comfortable enough, but I need to like the way they look more. So, which is why like I go to the doctor and they're like you should wear more comfortable shoes, and I'm like, well, the comfortable shoes don't have like the Nike Air logo on them, so like, I'm not gonna wear them.
Yeah.
And one day I will bear the wrath of that, but that day is not today. So so this is the difference in philosophy with the Crocs, right? Because
Mhm.
some people like they don't care about form, which is
Yeah.
fine. Everyone cares about what they want to care about, and that's fine. But I am not that person, so I don't really understand the appeal. And I think they look hideous, and these KFC ones are just awful.
Yeah.
And I don't.
It's. I think the thing with Crocs is just like, some people, so I think that the age old problem with design, as I think that both of us had probably learned at least in architecture, this is kind of like the trichotomy. Is that a word, trichotomy? The three pillars of architecture being, beauty, utility, and structure of an object, especially shoes. I think that logic can jump, to another, like pretty easily between those two things. And I think that with like I get sometimes you want something to be more like useful, like utility is the bigger factor, and like sometimes you don't want your stuff to break, and I'm sure we all like with me with Vans, like I love Vans, look great, you feel great walking on them, but man, those things fall apart like pretty easily. At
Right.
least that's been my experience. And yeah, so I get like you want to be on certain ends of the spectrum, and it's like you're trying to balance everything, blah blah blah. But Crocs, it feels like they just hit you in the face with like how little the form, how little like the beauty of the final product is like the part of it, and it feels really out of balance to me, and I don't know if you get the same thing from
So
it.
and what's funny is that like the people that work Crocs, they are not the kind of people that care about form, which is fine, right? Like
Yeah.
I would hate to shame someone for that, and because that's not what I believe in,
Yeah.
and that's okay. They care about comfort, and apparently they swear by the comfort. Okay, they look like a comfortable pair of slides with a horrible exterior, and there's like the ventilation, and I get that. I totally get
Yeah.
that. So they already don't care about form, and that's why like most Crocs you see, they're just like solid colors or maybe some stripes or whatever. But this is like a cheeky collab, which just like rubs in your face like how
It-
hideous these
That's what
and how
the
little
rubbing
people
in the face.
and how
Like,
little people that would wear these would care about like I don't know like matching clothes or something. I don't even know
yeah.
how to like explain it.
It's just such a slap in the face, I feel like.
And,
But
it's the same thing with like those expensive like Post Malone Crocs that came out a couple years ago too.
oh yeah.
With all the
Yeah.
Post Malone gibbets on them and everything. Like Post Malone is known for just not caring like at all the
Yeah,
way he
yeah.
looks. Like he looks disheveled all the time, and
Yeah.
he's wearing his Crocs and his basketball shorts and his oversized T-shirts, and he's always got a cigarette and a Bud Light in his hand.
Yeah.
The music slaps, so it's all good. But like, no,
Saving grace.
but like these are just I
It's
can't.
a whole,
I don't.
yeah. It just make I feel like everyone kind of associates there are Crocs people, like, like there's people who like swear by them. I have friends that wear Crocs all the time, and like out and about, like whatever. And it's definitely like socially acceptable or whatever. Especially
Yeah.
like with these like are such like a lifestyle statement, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just not doesn't fit me. I remember, like we talked about, like in high school, I went to this like super like snooty private religious institution, like super whatever. And I had this like, and it was like private school, so you have like khakis and like button down, like the whole nine.
A dress code.
Yeah, dress code, and
Yeah.
super rigorous, even down to the like the shoes, and like some people were more rigorous about enforcing it than others. Like there was a bit of contention about that, as these things naturally do. But one of the teachers that was super like strict about the dress code, top to bottom, like shoes to your shirt. The one teacher that was really strict about that, she came to school in Crocs like all the time.
Oh my God.
And we weren't allowed to wear Crocs. Like we were obviously closed-toe shoes were a must. And even I think it was like certain colors were like off limits or something like that. Like certain designs, I don't remember.
Wow.
Like again, like some teachers enforced it more than others. But like she just rolled up in Crocs, and like she was one of the ones that enforced it the most. And that just really just grinded my gears of like the hypocrisy of someone in that position.
And that certainly breeds resentment. I always
Yeah.
hated. I did not go to a religious institution, but I had a public school. We had a dress code that, again, was sparingly enforced, and teachers didn't have to follow it. Although most teachers looked presentable. So, and I don't remember a teacher ever wearing Crocs, but that's the kind of thing that breeds resentment, especially. But
Yeah.
But back to Crocs as like a lifestyle statement. I can't even explain it. It's like a weird thing, like the intersection of comfort and form and function and everything. So to get a little meta here for a minute, I used to have this watch that was not legible, that did not have numbers on it. So in order to read it, there were these three circles that there was a small circle, an inner circle, and an outer circle, and each of the circles had like a little had like a hole in it like on the diameter, on the perimeter there was like a hole where the circle didn't close all the way, and where the hole was pointing, that is what the time was. So obviously it's still a circle watch, so you could in your head that like the very top is 12, the very bottom is 6, the right is 3, and the left is 9, and you can kind of infer in the middle, right?
Yeah. So like the back of the back of the watch is what's moving, right? Like plates.
Yeah, the plates on the watch are moving with the three circles, and the little circle was the second, so that the little circle was always moving, and you can tell that it was moving because it had like the hole on the perimeter that was pointing at what second it was, and then the minutes would move and the hours would move.
Hmm.
And when you're just looking at it, you do have to do a little bit of mental work to be okay. Well, the big circle is pointing at the 3, the little one is pointing here, the middle one's pointing there, and you could tell what time it was.
Yeah.
And I remember people liked the watch because the watch looked cool. Like the watch just being 3 circles. I mean, I think that looks cool.
Yeah, it's different. It catches your eye.
Yeah, but as a watch, it needed a little bit of work, and you could argue that as a watch, it fails at its job because you want to be able to look at the watch and see what time it is very quickly.
Yeah, it doesn't have that utility factor.
And it doesn't have the utility factor. Again, you can tell time on it, but it takes some work. And I remember getting into arguments with some of my friends about this watch, and they were like, why do you wear that? Because you can't tell time on it. And I said, well, I value the form of this watch over the function because I think the watch looks cool, and clearly we're talking about it right now, so it's got some of the attention grabbing ability that it does have.
Conversation piece.
And a lot of people, a lot of people agree with me that the watch looks cool and you don't need to tell time on it. At the end of the day, watches in this day and age are more of an accessory than anything because you can always take your phone out and look at the time. And that's the argument people make to me in general whenever I wear a watch. And it's like, well, I'm not only wearing a watch to see what time it is, I'm wearing a watch just because I like the way it looks.
Yeah. And I've been so, I don't have the Apple Watch money to begin with, but I've been so, like, even without that, I've been not wanting to do anything like that because, like, smartwatch, whatever brand, because I like having, like, a watch that, like, tells time, like, not because it tells time, but because it's, like, an old watch. I don't know, it's just, like, cool to have a watch that you just have it, and like, the new, I don't really like the whole Apple Watch, like, style, whatever. It just kind of bugs me. But I like the idea of having, like, a watch that ticks on your wrist. Like, that's cool to me. And I can't explain anything about it because, like, sometimes I look at my watch for the time, sometimes I look at my phone for the time, but it just feels right to have that on my wrist, I don't know if you feel the same way at all, but that's
that's why, like, I have, like, watches now because I just like the way it looks. Like, I like the stability of a watch, especially. So I think thinking back to these horrible Crocs, like, there's an argument. Some people will value form over function and vice versa. And the way I started realizing that, and I was really paying attention to this a lot when I was starting to get into sneakers, because that was a couple years ago. And I remember as I was looking into, like, expensive shoes and, like, looking at Jordans and Nike Air Maxes and NMDs and Ultra Boosts and whatever, I started looking a lot at what other people were wearing, because now that I know more of these shoes, like, I can always spot when other people have some cool shoes, and I want to, like, let them know, like, hey man, nice Jordans, nice this, nice that,
Yeah.
That's like a cool thing. That's like a bond you have with other sneakerheads.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
But in the meantime, like, as you're looking for some heat, like, you always find just, like, a slurry, like, a big amount of just non-hype, just shoes, right? Just whatever, right? People wear shoes, and I know, and I notice a lot that a lot of people wear trainers when they're just walking around, and I'm not gatekeeping when people wear trainers. It's more just an observation that a lot of people just want a comfortable shoe, and trainers are very comfortable because you run in them, you work out in them. But if you just walk around in them, they're super comfortable. And most people just wear trainers, and if they're not wearing trainers, they're just wearing Chucks or they're wearing Vans. And there's, like, a fine line there because, like, the trainers are comfortable, but they're not very stylish most of the time. They're just ordinary shoes with, like, a Nike logo or whatever. Like, they're not stylish. They're just ordinary shoes. But, like, the Chucks and the Vans, like, that is a step up towards style, but it's a step back in terms of comfort.
Yeah.
And then as you get further up, you get, like, the mixes, right? Or, like, Jordans are very uncomfortable, but they're like a pretty high step up in style and culture and chic and everything. And then you get shoes that are, like, Ultra Boosts that are, like, also really stylish, but they're extremely comfortable.
That's kind of my philosophy too, is, like, these things, like, to me it's so cool when the form of an object, like, I think a lot of times, like, in designers' head, it's like, I want this to mirror the form of, like, the human foot or, like, something in nature, there's inspiration. Like I know in the Jordan they have the elephant print, like with the Adidas they've got like the cloud boost, like it's like looks like the boost material looks like a cloud.
Hmm.
And like I love these inspirations, and a lot of the times like you can make it whenever there's something perfect that's like the form and the function really just coexist as like one thing. Like
Exactly.
that's so cool, and like that's what to me like that's just kind of what design has to be. With architecture we had the whole structural element, but in this in a different like medium, like just the when those two things meet, like it's just so perfect.
And that's the whole thing with architecture. Like, nothing. There's very little that has to. Well, yeah, maybe you know more about this than I do, but buildings don't have to be the way they look most of the time. Like, you could always just leave like the concrete shell and just leave it like that, and no
Mhm.
windows, or put windows if you want, and everything is very industrial, and everything is half finished. Now, ironically, that has become its own style, but
Yeah,
there is a reason why they put up brick facades, glass facades, and all of these things, and try to like put architectural elements that don't have a purpose, but they just look nice, and that's the
yeah.
whole point.
Yeah, it's something in your head that like, especially when it comes to like those facades, it's like there's moments like there's areas where it's like something needs to be there, like something just this space is not going to look complete unless there's something there, and you kind of have to put something there. And I could say the same thing about shoes with a logo. Like you've got these like trashy, like not to like rag on whatever you're wearing, but like these like shoes that don't have like a logo or like don't are pretty plain or whatever. And it just looks really weird looking at a shoe with it's like just no logo. Like there should be a logo there.
Well, and
Um,
that's where we get into talking about like brand association and salience and stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
even the most bare bones like Adidas sneakers, like there's always a subtle three
three
stripes hint.
stripes. Yeah,
Right now I'm wearing my Stan Smiths, and they don't have like the embedded stripes. They have
yeah,
like the dots on them that look
yeah. I
like
love
three
that.
stripes. Yeah,
I love
these are
that.
dope. Like
Yeah.
they become like my favorite shoes to wear around the house. Like they're really
Mhm.
comfortable. And I haven't worn them. I haven't worn them around that much. So I'm trying to like break them in and just keep them nice and fresh, and the leather, everything nice. But like, yeah, like, there is always an intersection between the two, form and function. But I don't know. Like I said, like at the end of the day, like I will always value form over function.
Mhm.
But obviously, like you can't, trade away all the function, of
Yeah.
course.
You gotta
Right?
be able to walk around.
Yeah, able to walk around, and I just, yeah, I've almost certainly hurt my foot with the shoes that I wear. But
Yeah.
I'm sort of just like, well, it's what I like. I can't. You have to balance the two extremes, I think.
Yeah,
But
and my doctor has said similar things because like I have like really weak arches, and I actually have to wear like not just like not the plastic insoles, but like the like firm. I don't even know what the material is on it, but like it's like these firm like hard insoles in my feet.
yeah,
Um, that
well, that's
like
workable. You can work with that.
yeah,
You
you
can
can
you
put
can
that in a
just
shoe.
you can just take
Yeah,
out the old insoles and put those in, and you're golden.
yeah, but there's also like the ankle aspect of it, of like the weak ankle kind of like folding in,
Mm,
and he's like, yeah, you shouldn't be wearing like these weak shoes that like Ultra Boost or like pick your kind of shoe like that. A lot of the Air Max series, like
yeah, just no ankle support.
yeah, and Vans, Chuck Taylor's no ankle support really.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, ironically, like now your high top Jordans are back into play because those have hella
yeah,
ankle support. You can tie
yeah,
you can lace those super tight, and you're secure.
yeah, and you're not moving your ankle around. And again, I think this may be something where we differ because, while I do like wearing the Jordans and I like wearing high tops in general, whether that be Jordans or Vans or whatever, I think the comfort is a super important aspect of it. And like a lot of times, like, if I'm wearing like high tops too much, I'm just like, this is not comfortable for me. This is not, this doesn't fit the function that I have of just like walking around just like casually. I don't want this right now. And it just, I don't like it's constricting and like, I don't know.
There's definitely an aspect of preference to that, because So back to Crocs. Like the argument that people make with Crocs and other open-toed shoes is that they're more comfortable. And
Yeah,
for
yeah,
me, every time I've worn open-toed shoes out and about, I always feel exposed. I
yeah.
feel unprotected. I feel unsafe. I don't like my feet being so close to the grass, to the concrete, to being exposed like that. I got pretty ugly feet. That's the other thing. So you know,
I got pretty good feet too,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
man.
So it's just like I don't want to show them off, and I don't feel protected. I don't feel safe. And people always make the argument, well, we live in like a hot state. Like, don't your feet get hot? And like, well, my feet just don't get hot. I don't. My torso gets hot. My
Yeah,
armpits get hot. My legs get hot. My face gets hot. My feet don't really. I don't feel that sensation. And then some
yeah,
people do. Some people really feel a lot of warmth in their feet, and they sweat like crazy. And yeah, maybe they should wear open-toed shoes, but I am not in that camp, and I can wear high tops and stuff like that in the summer. The main thing holding me back is just having to wear pants with them, because high tops and shorts just they don't work for me. They make me look short. So
yeah,
but high tops and black pants, I mean, whew, that's
yeah,
like that's what I wear every day in like the winter. You'll never not see me in high tops in the winter,
yeah.
but
Yeah, and that's like
yeah.
such an iconic Marco style, you know.
Hey, I appreciate that. Well, I've always got my acronym Prestos or
Yeah,
my infrared sixes, which I love. Yeah,
nice.
so I think we've covered the Crocs here. They're pretty hideous, but it is like an intersection of people that are so function over form that they just don't care at all how they
Yeah.
look. And, yeah.
It fits for some, you know, it fits for some people, and like I think people can make it like kind of like the Post Malone thing. They can really make it their own, I guess.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's just not really for me.
Let's get this over with. Let's do folklore follow up.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
last week,
Speaking of drops.
yeah, yeah, last week or episode one,
Last
we
episode.
we talked about Taylor Swift's new album Folklore, which she dropped a while ago. Who knows? I don't know. And I kind of wanted to see if you've changed your mind on anything since we've talked about it. If you've listened to it again, I have not listened to it again. There's one bonus track. I'm looking at the Spotify right now, and I haven't listened to it, and I'm not that interested in hearing it. But there were just a few things that I wanted to touch on that I thought maybe I was a little too harsh, and I did some
Mm.
digging. But I wanted to get your take if there was anything at all that's changed since. Have you heard it again since last time?
No, I haven't listened to it all the way through. You know, kind of going off my comments then, I didn't hate it. But it didn't excite me and didn't make me want to listen to it again. I've heard stuff from it again, like in other contexts of me not seeking it out, you know, like you just kind of hear stuff around. But
Yeah,
it definitely was not, like we had said, like it wasn't something that I felt as though, you know, wasn't meant for me, wasn't my type of music to begin with. But it wasn't something like, even if there's, you know, I've been listening to a lot of music that's outside my comfort zone, and sometimes you listen to something and you're like, this isn't for me, this isn't right, but man, I really want to come back to this, and it really drags you in, and I just didn't get that from personally from like this album, you know.
yeah, yeah. So it is no secret, I really did not like this album. I kind of eviscerated it last time. I wanted to clarify a few comments, though. I don't know if anyone that heard last time would even be listening right now, but I do want to clarify. I compared this album to Fine Line, which, looking back at it, that was a moment of heat and passion. Um, and I don't know that I would compare the two right now in my calm state.
Hmm.
Um, I think there are elements that are similar, although broadly they are not comparable. I mean, certainly I think Fine Line's a better album, but I think, in terms of pop albums that have touches of folk, I mean,
Yeah.
they are, that is what they kind of are, but the songs are different, the stylization is different. There are too many different things, I think, to adequately compare them, although I do maintain that as I was listening to it, I did wish I was listening to Harry Styles instead. That will please the Swifties to no end, I'm sure. So that's one thing. So I do want to say that maybe I did not mean to draw such a comparison to them because I don't think that they're that similar. But
Mm.
I do think that certain elements are similar enough for me to like have that thought in my head. But, maybe I shouldn't have laid it on so thick. That's one. And two is that I had trouble sort of like nailing down what specifically I didn't like about the album. Like I knew I didn't like it, and I
Yeah.
knew that I had certain reasons for it. But what I did in between then and now is I looked around the internet for mixed or negative reviews of the album,
Hmm.
and from people in the music industry, newspapers, whatever, because I find that looking for reviews like that helps me uh, re- uh, establish like a framework, a frame of reference to what
Yeah.
I didn't like, because usually those people, like, they have just better ways of writing stuff down, and maybe some of
Hmm.
them are trained in music and they have more influence, like they know what is what, when it comes to music. Like for
Yeah.
me, like I hear something, it's like, oh, I just think this sounds boring, but they know how to like contextualize it. um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so you don't have to agree with people on the internet, but it does help to see what people say. So I did look around, and I went to Metacritic and like all these other places that aggregate reviews, and there
Hmm.
aren't any outright negative reviews. There aren't any reviews that are like, this album is absolute trash. But I did find that the mixed reviews helped me. So like the three
Yeah.
stars, the 2.5 stars, out of
Well,
five. I mean,
because that's kind of how we felt, you know. I don't think I would say it's like this is absolute trash. It's just not
oh
something that
yeah,
dragged
yeah,
me in, you know. Yeah.
yeah. No, and I think if I didn't mention it last time, I'll mention it here. I don't think it's a bad album. I find it
Yeah.
really boring, but I don't think that means that. I think it's well made, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I understand why people connect to it. It's just that it didn't really click with me. But I wanted to know why it didn't click. I wanted to use like the words that other people that are smarter than me use. So I
Yeah.
looked so I went and I looked for mixed or negative reviews of the album. Negative was hard to find because I think most mainstream music journalists had at least a few positive things to say about it, and they kind of feel the way we do, in that it's good, it's good, but it may not speak to other people, or whatever. So I found a mixed review that I really agree with here from The Guardian, and I'll probably link it in the description. Um, and it sort of just touches on, it is well produced, it is well crafted, but it's unremarkable, it's unmemorable. This is a really great sentence. Pillowy but totally unmemorable, the equivalent of a hospital newsagent condolence card. And that is really, really how I feel about it. Is that I feel like it's just like, I don't know. It's like a get well card in an album,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
just
Shout out to the Guardian, but
shout out the
yeah.
Guardian. Yeah, shout out the Guardian. It could be so much. It could have been so much more. And there's an aspect of this that talked. There's an aspect of the album that I don't know that we touched on last time, but that it was made entirely during the quarantine era, right?
Mm.
Period. That we're still living in. Still living in. Okay,
Yeah.
I want to make that clear. We are still living in quarantine. Okay. Um,
We're still living.
yeah. Well, and this has become, even though like quarantine has only been for a couple of months, like the quarantine body of work has already become like a cliche.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, everyone's done something like this already, and
It's a
and
unique time period, you know.
it is, but now I feel like there is an aspect of just like getting tired of it, at least for me
Mhm.
anyway. And given that this is another entry in the quarantine body of work, it is just, that's exactly what it feels like. It feels like a quote unquote like passion project that is made during this kind of time period, and I don't know, I just can't shake that feeling. It feel Not that it feels phony, it just feels like we're all doing this, so I should do it too.
Mhm.
And again, I would never imply that that's what Taylor is doing. Like obviously, like she's a brilliant songwriter. Like she does stuff because she wants to do it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
just because like I'm tired of this kind of thing, it
Mm.
unfortunately, that is just like baggage that the music is unfortunately carrying
Mm.
for me here. So that is sort of what, and the Guardian kind of mentions that as well.
Yeah.
And it is just here we go. It's this could have been a truly startling left field endeavor, but as lockdown experiments go, folklore is nothing if not eminently logical. So like it's implying that it's stale.
Yeah.
It's well crafted, but because it's so well crafted, it's boring. There's
Yeah.
nothing rough around the edges about it, and that is exactly kind of how I feel.
Mm.
There's nothing here that gives it an edge of it like being made during this period,
Mm.
other than it being that it's somewhat different. That's pretty stylistically different from what she's
Yeah.
done before. But that's it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this album didn't need to be written during quarantine. It could have been written before or after.
Mm.
And there are contrast that with other albums that have been produced entirely within this period that you can tell that it feels more like that. And people will
Yeah.
argue that why do you let that bother you when it doesn't affect the music? And I agree
Mm.
that it shouldn't affect the music, but we contextualize music in like the eras that we're in and the eras in which they were released. So
Hmm.
that is just,
Definitely.
to me, like that's just undeniable. Um, but and unfortunately for me, it affects the way I feel about this record.
So I'll ask. So do you think that because of that, because it is such a quarantine album, do you think that this is kind of because for me and from what I've seen from a lot of people, it feels like for a lot of people, this album epitomizes the quarantine for them, and like this is going to be something that they look back on as a defining moment of the quarantine. Would you say, obviously it doesn't have that special place in your heart as an album, but would you say that this album kind of is a defining moment in the quarantine period?
So there's an aspect of it's a defining moment of quarantine because it was released during quarantine.
Yeah,
And there's an
yeah.
aspect of it's a defining moment of quarantine because it's about quarantine.
Mm,
And for me, you want to ask me like what music defines your quarantine experience? Well, I'm going to say After Hours because
yeah.
it's not about quarantine at all. It
Yeah.
is, it is a sort of by the numbers, like experimental, like the weekend project, but it was released during the first week of quarantine. I haven't been able to shake my ass to In Your Eyes, because I'm not in the clubs. So like that is sort of what it. And also like Niall Horan's Heartbreak Weather is the same sort of
Yeah.
thing because it was released like a week before. And
Yeah.
so I will never like begrudge people's experience like listening and liking an album during quarantine and then later in
Hmm.
life associating that with quarantine. Like that, who am I to judge people's experiences, right? Like
Yeah.
that's, yeah, you do you, man. Like again, like I'm going to have albums, movies, TV shows that I'm going to associate with this period. But
Mm.
as like a work that has to be contextualized in like the era that we're in right now, I don't know that it
Mhm.
holds up to that. It's
Mm.
sort of like a lovelorn, like folky thing that could kind of have been released at any point, and some of the themes are kind of generic, and it's kind of like a mishmash. Like there's nothing in it that seems to me about that. Contrasts with like other works that are more explicitly about that. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
haven't heard this album, but like that Charlie XCX album that came out, like that is,
Mm. I'll check that out.
yeah, that is like really like that is for sure about that. Like I haven't
Hmm.
heard it, but I know that people talk about it in a really positive way.
Yeah.
This doesn't seem like that. It again, the only way that it's related to quarantine, it's that is because Taylor presumably has a lot of time on her hands and she wants to experiment with a sound she's never done before. Well, okay,
Yeah.
that's great. Like that, that is related to that, but it's
Mm.
not.
Not for me.
Well, and I don't like it, but like it is. It's not. It's not thematically about quarantine like
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
works have been.
I say not for me, but more not universally. It's not universally like for anyone except for her. It's not really about the quarantine.
Exactly.
I
That
think.
that is a perfect way to put that. Yeah, I sort of feel the same way I do about the way that this Guardian article mentions it. Although certainly the Guardian article was way more positive about the album than I was. So even though it's a mixed review, it is a lot
Yeah.
more positive than I was.
Yeah. I mean that's real. Like I definitely agree. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like again, doesn't have to be your opinion, but that's just I think that we kind of came to a similar consensus about it. Although I'm sure that there's going to be a couple things that we talk about, especially music wise, that we're definitely not going to agree on. But
And I want to close the folklore door, but
mm.
I will close it. I know there are people that are begging me to just stop talking about it, and I will. I promise you I will. There's just one last thing. Remember when I talked about the song Mirror Ball and like the quietest drums I've ever heard in my life
Yes,
and how
yeah.
annoyed that was? And it made me think, please tell me I'm not the only one that feels this way. So I Googled Mirror Ball drums, and lo and behold, the New York Times review, which is like a positive review, does mention that on Mirror Ball, it sounds like someone is hitting like the quietest snare drum in the world. Um,
There it is. That's the good ear.
they didn't say it in like a positive or negative light, but I think it's a negative. But the New York Times didn't say it in a negative way. But
Mm,
they did acknowledge that the drums were very quiet. So
mm,
that validated my criticism because I was
yeah.
like, great, I'm not the only one that thinks the drums are quiet. Why are they so quiet? All right, all right. If
All right.
there are no further things to say, let's close the door on folklore.
Peace out.